Okay, here's my audience. It's my mom, my brother and future sister-in-law, and my boyfriend Cole. And here we go. Okay. Imagine that you or a loved one gets sick, and you hear some really terrifying news from the doctor. That in order to survive and overcome this illness, you need an organ transplant. What would your first thought be? Would it be panic, hearing those words? Or would it be relief, because you know that there's a donation list that you or your loved one can be put on? You can get your transplant, and then you can just move forward with your life. But then what if you found out that there are 113,000 people ahead of you waiting for an organ transplant? Would that relief turn to panic? As someone who has seen people die while waiting on that list for a life-saving transplant, I want to tell you all about the scary statistics of organ donation in the US and how we can solve this problem. Right now in the US, we implement an opt-in organ donation system. In other countries, they have an opt-out organ donation system and a much shorter waiting list to get that transplant. So first, let's learn about all those scary facts about organ donation. According to organdonor.gov, there are currently 113,000 people in the US waiting for a life-saving transplant right now. This same site also explains that only 36,000 organs are getting transplanted each year. If that list were to never change, that means there's 77,000 people waiting for that life-saving transplant right now. But sadly, that list changes every day. Organdonor.gov also shows that every 10 minutes, someone new is added to that list. But even scarier than that statistic is the 20 people that die every single day because they didn't receive their transplant in time. Organdonor.gov also put out a survey to all the adults in the US. They found that 95% of the respondents agreed with organ donation and organ transplant, but there are only 58% of them that are currently registered to be donors when they pass away. This clearly shows that there's some sort of disconnect with our system and that something needs to change. So let's look at a way that we could fix this. As I mentioned before, in the US, we have an opt-in organ donation system. What this means is you have to choose to be put on the organ donation list. So typically when you go to the DMV to get a new license or to renew your license, you'll check a box that says, yes, I want to be an organ donor, and you can also check which organs you would like to donate when you pass away. But in other countries, they have an opt-out system. What this means is that everyone is automatically put onto an organ donation list. And in order to be taken off of that, you would need to go and have yourself removed from it. This seems simple enough. In these other countries, they have much shorter lists and people are able to receive more life-saving donations every single year. We can take Austria, for example. They implemented an opt-out organ donation system, and according to Schreiber, more than 90% of adults in that country end up being organ donors when they pass away. We can also look at these statistics. So as you can see here, organ donation rates in countries with an opt-in system are much lower per million of their population than countries that have an opt-out system implemented. We can also look here and see the effective consent percentages for countries that are opt-in and countries that are opt-out. So as you can see, the countries that are opt-in are very low, with only one country, the Netherlands, being above 20%. But in these opt-out countries, almost all of them are about 100% of organ donation for their population. People that are opposed to having this opt-out system might argue that there is going to end up being people who don't actually want their organs donated that end up having them donated after they pass away. But as Carwyn Hooper points out, these people need to consider if this is any worse than people dying waiting on that transplant list because there were people in this country that wanted to donate but never made it down to the DMV to check that little box. I would also challenge these people to think about how many lives can be saved and improved because of just one extra donor. We can see here that just one organ donor can provide 8 life-saving organ donations and can improve 75 different lives from their tissues and corneas that are donated after they pass away. That's a big difference that just one person can make. So imagine adding thousands or millions more to our organ donation list and how many lives could be saved then. It's also important to remember that no one is ever forced to donate their organs, even in an opt-out system. All you have to do is go and choose to be taken off the list. It's just as simple as going and getting yourself put on the list. So let's think about what changing our system could actually mean. It's going to mean less kids spending their childhoods in hospitals, hooked up to different tubes, just waiting to get sent home. More kids outside playing with their friends, playing sports, going to school, and more kids just chasing that ice cream truck down the road. Just imagine a country where your mom, your dad, your brother, or your sister gets sick and they need that life-saving transplant. And they only have to wait months instead of years for it. Think of how many more Christmases you could have with your loved ones if we changed our system. Think of that smell of the Christmas tree sitting by the window. Or think of that peppermint candle that's crackling in the background while your favorite Christmas song is playing. Think of all your loved ones sitting around you. Now imagine not having that the following year. We could add extra Christmases. People could have more Christmases with their loved ones if we just simply switched our system. But how do we actually make this happen? Well, we need to get it on the ballots and we need to vote. So we need to make sure that people are informed. We need people to know that there are 7,300 people dying every single year because the list was just too long and their bodies couldn't wait any longer. We need to implement this opt-out system so that we can save those 7,300 lives and we can give them just one more Christmas with their loved ones or 10 more Christmases with their loved ones. But in the meantime, while we wait for this to get put on the ballots and while we wait to vote to change our system, everyone needs to go and register to be an organ donor. You can save 8 lives and you can improve the lives of 75 different people. Just think of that. Okay, here is my audience again. Okay.